transition of power in Zambia after a hard-fought and sometimes bloody election, President Edgar Lungu conceding defeat to opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema. Ringisai Chikohomero is an Africa analyst and researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Ringisai, good evening to you, and thank you for your time tonight. It seemed to have been touch and go there, especially over the weekend, where there was conflicting messages about whether or not President Edgar Lungu would be handing over peacefully, but that seems to have all changed going into this evening.
Thank you for having me. Yes, the tide they've turned very fast in Zambia, but we didn't expect any less. From President Kaunda back 20, 30 years ago, the precedence was set of peaceful transfer of power between political opponents. And we didn't expect President Lungu to deviate from that norm. It's a political culture that is now entrenched in the life of Zambians as they grow and mature in their democracy.
So what did you make then of some of the questions that were being asked by the president at the time about the credibility of the IEC, the environment, the extent to which the elections would have been free and fair, and also placing a great deal of responsibility on the opposition for some of the killings that have taken place in the run-up to this election?
Well, you have to understand it from the perspective of an incumbent who thought he had done all in his power to limit the free play of the opposition, to deny the opposition space to campaign, mobilize and engage with citizens, to limit access to information, to deploy the military in the streets to try and intimidate the opposition. So he had done all he can using state resources to try and win this election. And it was really a shock, an unpalatable shock for him, that he was going to lose, and lose overwhelmingly. So in the last minute, he began to try and grasp on straws and try and find some other reason that could not really hold water in the face of a very humiliating defeat. I mean, he lost by nearly 1 million to the president-elect Hichilema.
And, you know, what you're saying is in line with what other commentators have said, that the vote for Hakainde Hichilema does not necessarily lie in his strength as a candidate, but the people of Zambia had simply gotten to a point where it should be anybody but Edgar Lungu. Let's talk then about the future and just the expectations that now rest on the incoming president.
That is very true, Kev, and I concur with that. This is more of a resounding rejection of PF, of mismanagement, and of the essentialism that Lungu was playing into. Indeed, President-elect did his homework. He really spruced up his image from being an elite billionaire who is out of touch with reality to a normal, ordinary Zambian that can relate to everyone, and crossed the tribal divide which has characterized Zambian election over the years. Now, but the most of the credit goes to the Zambians themselves, who stood up and rejected what they saw as unpalatable in terms of economic mismanagement. Now, the real test begins for President Hichilema. You will soon see that political promises and the reality of managing a government are two different things. It remains to be seen if President Hichilema has the stamina for it, has the economic prowess for it, and has the integrity to really carry through this mandate for the next 5 years. When you read through his political manifesto, you can really see that his focus is on the economy. It's a 19-page document. 12 pages are dedicated to economic restructuring and trying to figure out how to maneuver out of the quagmire that he found himself, that Zambia was put by the PF. So he is clear that the task at hand is more economical. And then the second largest chunk of his manifesto goes to institutional reforms and restructuring of certain policies, especially how you negotiate loans, restructuring loans and getting more favorable loans, not burdening Zambians any further with debt.
So when you look at that plan then around economic reform and you take into account the high unemployment numbers, especially among Zambian youth who have also contributed quite significantly in his rise to the presidency, how much pressure is there on him to ensure that he does not let the young people of Zambia down as a constituency that has basically brought him up to this moment?
There's so much pressure on him. One only hopes that he is cognizant and really lives up to his commitments. If you listen to his press conference today, it was really full of promises and a statement with clears to the challenge ahead. But like Napoleon said, political promises are much more brittle than lovers' oaths. It really is in the workings, what will happen in the first 100 days, as we all now come to measure new administrations, that will determine if he really knows how to manage. Now, we've seen in a few examples where businessmen have been in government. It does not necessarily translate. Many instances where a business person has failed to transfer their acumen in business into managing public welfare and economics. We really look forward to what President Hichilema will maneuver and how you create employment. He has picked up agriculture as one avenue of creating youth employment. He has picked up mining as an area where he needs to open it up and create jobs for young people. But it's in the implementation of these well-intentioned policies where the evidence lies.
So many different threads, just listening to the state of Zambia, the challenges there, and thinking about the situation in South Africa, and perhaps even the rest of the SADC region, just the similarities when it comes to the challenges these countries are facing. Ringisai Chikohomero is an Africa analyst and researcher at the Institute for Security Studies.